going to walk through it with you step by step so that you can follow along with me. I'm hoping to go kind of slow enough to keep with the pace. Please feel free to drop in the chat anything you need me to know, like speed up or slow down or go over that again, or just let me know what you need. Okay. So as we're working with acrylic paint, we work with the background first and the foreground last. So we'll be doing just kind of a wash over everything to get the background filled in, and then go through the rest of it as it comes. I'm going to use these colors, but you know, this is your painting, not my painting. So if you want to change something, you can definitely do that. We can start by mixing some paint for the background. So whatever kind of paint palette you have, you'll want to get that in front of you. And we can start pouring out some paint. My fancy paint palette is a paper plate. So first I'm going to get pretty good, decent amount of blue. And then I'm also going to get some white. Oh, this white needs a little bit of extra help. There we go. Okay. And this is enough. I like the really warm blues, like almost to the point that they're turquoisey. So I personally prefer to also have just a tiny bit of yellow, totally optional though. And you can also completely change the color of your background. Yellow would look really nice with these colors if that goes with your house, or you could always make it a darker blue if that goes with your house. Or pink would be really nice too to complement with the green. It just means you'd have to change the color of the blossoms that are on the cactus. Okay, so to get started painting, I'm going to grab my largest brush and I will give it a quick dunk into my water cup. Okay, and then I'm going to scoot my colors into the middle so that I have a little more control over what they look like. So I'm going to take a little scoop of my white and then some of my blue. Then, like I said, I like a tiny bit of yellow to make it almost turquoisey, but you don't have to. And I'm going to mix until I like how it looks. If you want it lighter, add a little more white. If you want it darker, you can add a little more blue. And it'll spread a lot better if you also take one more dunk into your water and just thin it out a little, and that way it'll spread a little bit easier. So if you're painting with me, you're probably still mixing. So I'm going to pause just a second as you're mixing. And as you're mixing, some tips for success. When you're painting a large area, or actually anything in general, you don't want to move your wrist. You want to move your whole shoulder. When you're painting, you'll get much more even brush strokes, and it won't be so weird and angly. It'll just go a lot better if you move from your shoulder, not so much your wrist. In fact, if you're a little bit sore as you're painting, you're doing it right. Okay. Okay, so our paint is mixed. I've got it loaded up on my brush here. And then I'm just going to get started. So going in kind of a consistent direction. Working from my shoulder. I'm going that way. And there are a few ways that you can do this. Option one is you could just paint this whole thing blue and that would work fine. That would look fine. Another option is while this paint is wet, sometimes it's fun to get a little bit of variation in there by adding some other lights and darks. So I'm gonna scooch some of my white. So now I have a lighter blue. And while that other color is still wet, again, working from my shoulder, I'll go that way. Then maybe I'll take a little more blue and go this way. And that's it. Okay. I'm just going to kind of keep doing big, large brush strokes until I like how it looks. Again, feel free to kind of just play with adding little streaks of white. As long as the paint is still wet, it's going to blend pretty easily, especially with white. White paint has magical blendy powers. Yeah, I think I like how that looks. I personally like seeing brush strokes in my paint. Some people, they get nervous when they see brush strokes in their paint and they think they're not supposed to be there, but paint should look like paint and that's okay. I'll even say that sometimes I've heard painters say, oh, it just looks like a bunch of blobs of paint. It doesn't look like a picture. But if you go to an art museum, some of the best painters in the world, you look up close to their paintings and it is blobs of paint. And then, you know, you stand back and it's amazing. So it's a good thing if your paint looks like paint. If you'd like, you can also paint the edges. So I guess I can just get those. That way you can hang it on your wall without a frame. And you can always go back and do that later. Also, I tend to paint faster than most humans. So I'm gonna go ahead and do it now to give you guys a chance to keep up who are painting with me. Okay, so I am painting. I'll try to kind of get the sides to blend in, and my easel covered up some of my canvas, so I'll go down and get that done as well. Okay. And that's probably the last time I'll use the big brush, so I'll put that into my water so that it doesn't dry out. And then I'll just give this about a minute to dry up a little more before I do the next part. You can take, this is our ghetto blow dryer right here, and we can just fan it, get it to dry. Okay, that'll just take a minute. It just needs to be dry enough that when I put my next paint on that it doesn't get too blendy and wet. But what I'll do next is start on these little pots. for the cactus to sit in. You could draw them with the pencil first if you're, really nervous about messing up or something, but I'm not going to. I don't want to be that uptight about things, so I'm just going to use a paintbrush, and we're just going to get a little bit of a, outline going to help us, but not have to, worry about making everything perfect. That's no fun at all. So let's see, we'll choose our size paintbrush. I guess I'll use kind of a smaller one, not super teeny tiny. I wish this one was a little bit fatter, but this will work. So I'm going to dip that into my water. And then I'm going to start drawing the basic outlines of the pots. Okay, so let's see. I want to get maybe a little closer so that you can see it. There we go. Okay, so I'm taking my little paintbrush here, and I'm actually going to use blue to paint the outlines of my pots, because I don't want the outlines to show when I'm done. I want them to disappear, so no one will know that I had to use them, but it'll be a little secret. So I'm going to get some blue on my brush. Okay, and then I'm going to start with the tops of the flower pots, or I guess the cactus pots, but the top of a pot is a circle, right? But a circle, when it's sitting on a table, is no longer a circle. A circle becomes an ellipse when it's on a table. It looks like a squished oval, okay? So I'm going to start with those 3 ellipses. So the first one, be about here. That's not showing up, is it? I'll use a darker blue so that it'll show up for the camera. Will that show up? There we go. You can see that better. Okay. So I've got 1 ellipse for my first pot. And then a second ellipse for my second pot. And you don't have to make your blue this dark. I just did so that the camera would see it, but lighter would probably be a little bit better, just so it won't show as much. But we'll be covering this up with other colors, so it's okay. Okay. And 3 little ellipses. Okay. So that's the opening of the pot. The next part is this lip that kind of comes around. So the lip is going to be curved because it's a circular pot, right? Okay, so think smiley face. We're going to go curve. 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 Okay. I just realized that it kind of looks like an upside down eye with an eyebrow. Upside down eye with eyebrow. There you go. Okay. Now I can connect them with a straight line. Okay. So these straight lines are going to be parallel, perpendicular with the edge of the canvas. Let's go straight down, straight down, straight down, straight down, straight down, straight down. Okay. So now I have the edge of my openings. Now I'll do the body of the pot here. And these are going to be slightly angled inward. You could also do it straight and it would be just fine. But I'm kind of going almost like a slight V right here. Okay. Taking my blue, I'm going to go straight down at a slight angle. down at a straight angle. If you mess it up a little, no worries. Paint is so forgiving. If you ever mess up, you let it dry and then you paint over it. No worries. Okay. Go again down at a slight angle. Here as well. And here as well. Okay. And then the bottoms of the pot, again, because they're round, it's going to be a curve. So again, think smiley face. We're going to basically mimic this same curve that we used for the lip of the pots. Okay. So smiley face, smiley curve, and smiley curve. Okay. Alrighty, those are drawn out. So now we can start filling them in with some color. Okay. So next on my palette, I'm going to take a little bit of black. I don't need very much at all, just a little bloop of black. And then the either a red oxide or a burnt sienna would be a great color for the pots, the flower pots. I'll need an okay amount of that. All right. Time to paint. Okay, so first I'm going to fill in just the center of the pot. That's a pretty easy part. So I'll get some of my black on a small-ish brush. Again, I wish this guy was a little bigger. That's okay. I actually like that a little bit of blue is getting in there. I like it. It looks good. So we're going to stay with that kind of ellipse look with the squished oval. If you have trouble getting a clean edge when you're painting a shape, here's a trick. If I take my brush kind of sideways and I lay it down and then I drag it along the canvas, it makes a really clean edge and it won't be all fuzzy and crazy. Okay, so that guy's done. And now we'll give it a little more black and do the next one. I'm seeing that my paint is getting a little bit gunky feeling. It's not spreading as smoothly as I'd like. So that means I need to dip my brush into the water and just give it a little bit of a twirl into the paint to thin it out. If it ever starts feeling gunky gummy, it means you need just a little bit of water. If it's not spreading evenly or easily, you just need a little bit of water. Okay. I saw that my edge was getting a little bit fuzzy, so I did the drag trick again. Smash the bristles down so that they're sideways and drag. Okay. All right, there's the openings. Now we can move on to the rest of the pot. This small brush is cramping my style, so I'm gonna move on to a little bit bigger of one, kind of a medium-sized brush. And I'm gonna dunk it once real quick in water to help the paint thin out a little bit so it'll spread a little bit easier. And I'm just dipping right into my burnt sienna color. If you don't have this specific color of paint, you can also mix brown with a little bit of red and it'll give you the same thing. Okay. And for the most part, covering up the blue outlines that I made. But again, I kind of like them that they're showing, especially since this burnt sienna color is kind of orangish. It's got an orangey hue. Orange and blue are complementary colors, so they work really well together. So I do not hate that I can kind of see that outline. Actually, I might leave parts of it on purpose so that they kind of peek through. I think that'll look nice. And I'm painting the lip of the flower pot now. Okay. Now, you could leave it just like this, and it would be totally fine. Or if you feel like getting fancy, there are a few other things you could do. If I get that smaller brush again, I could add some more dimension to help it look three-dimensional. So here's what that would look like. And I'm going to do this right away while this paint is wet because it'll blend a lot easier if I work wet into wet. So I just took my small brush and I'm dipping back into the black that I already had on my paint palette. And I kind of want to accentuate the ridge here. Okay, so I got that there. And if it looks like too much, you can dip back into your brown, kind of tone it down a little. I think it'd be nice to take the brown up here on top. Like so. And then I can also add some dimension to the bottom by doing something similar. Just have a little bit of black. And then to help it look round, Again, smiley face. So in a curved motion, it's going to help it start to look kind of round. A little bit more brown on the brush will help it blend and look like it's supposed to be there. And if you're really feeling crazy, you can also get the tiniest little bit of white and get a little bit of a highlight going. On the other side, again, we want the paint underneath to be wet so that it blends. Okay, there's our first flower pot. I'm going to do the exact same thing to the other two. Okay, so larger brush, well, medium-sized brush, dipping into the reddish brown. Okay, there's the edge. Then I'll get the bottom. Okay. It is filled in and I'm ready to start embellishing with the lights and darks. How do you paint so fast? It's because I'm working my shoulder instead of little wrist movements. I've got big broad strokes because I'm working from my shoulder. Okay. Getting a little bit of black and I'm going to define the lip of the pot here. Here's the edge. You could also, if the blending thing is not working for you, you could definitely also just outline in black. Also will kind of clean up the edges and make it look really nice. Any parts that don't entirely look like they're supposed to be there, just get a little bit more of that brown color and smooth it in. Okay, I want that brown edge at the top like the other one. So I'm able to get a smooth line. If I smash those bristles down sideways and just drag it over, I'll get a nice clean edge. Okay. Now I'm ready for the bottom. Again, you could leave it just like that, just like a black outline. That would be totally fine. Or if you want, if you're feeling fancy, smudge it over in kind of a curved smiley face pattern, and it'll help it to look round. A little bit of white, make it look like a highlight, and it'll blend in really well if that red paint underneath is still wet. You could also even take just a brush with no paint and only water and use it to smooth anything out that you think looks kind of chunky. Okay, I like how that little guy looks. All right, last pot, and then it's cactus time. Sounded like a new Hunger Games character. Okay, so wet paintbrush, medium size. Let's get this last little guy painted in. I'll get this last guy done a little bit faster since we've gone over the process twice now. Okay, so I'm filling him in. Then I want my black on a smaller brush. Edge. Okay, I went around the edge. Now it's blendy time, if you want. Okay. A little bit of a white highlight. I'm seeing now that I didn't do the brown on the top edge. I need to do that. Okay. A little bit more brown on my skinny brush here. Get our top edge. The brown wants water. You see it trying to be chunky on me there. take that brown. Okay, there we go. That smoothed it out. Okay. Time for cactus. I need green paint next. By the time you get done painting your third little pot here, this first guy should be dry enough that you can start your cactus. Some parts of it are a little bit sticky wet still, but most of it is dry enough that it shouldn't do anything weird. Okay, so I need, oh, excuse me. Okay, we need some green. And then to mix these different colors here, I also need a little bit of yellow. And I need some white as well for highlights. White for highlights. And you know what? I had a lot of that on my other plate, so I'm gonna steal it. And definitely feel free to use the same plate. I don't know, I didn't want to confuse anyone with all those different colors. Okay, so stolen white. There we go. Okay, so we need a nice cactusy green to start with. And actually this green that I happen to get straight out of the tube is pretty darn cactusy. So I think I'm gonna leave it for this darker base color that we have going on there. And I'm using medium-sized brush, which I just rinsed it out, so it's kind of wet, but I dabbed the excess off on my paper towel. So I'll get a pretty good amount on my brush here. And then I'm feeling adventurous and I'm just gonna go for it. Again, if you would like to draw it out in pencil, if that makes you feel better, that's what you should do. I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna start painting. So I am gonna do edges first though, okay? So we'll outline with the paintbrush and we just kind of break down the different cactuses into shapes. So we've got like a upside down teardrop, 2, 3 with 2 little nubbies coming out of the sides. So we'll start with the basic shape of the bottom. Again, upside down teardrop. There we go. There he is. Then coming out of that, we've got that little guy. Can you see that okay? And then this guy there. I want him to be a bit bigger. That's what is nice about drawing with the paintbrush is you know, kind of easy to fix. Okay, then I need a small one coming out. Again, it's basically just a series of upside down raindrops. Okay. All right. Then this guy gets a little nubbin coming out of the side too. Okay, there he is. How cute is our little cactus? Okay. This is going to take a couple coats probably to get it to cover all the way. So a good game plan would be to outline it, fill it in with a thin coat of green, and then by the time you get these drawn, this guy's going to be dry and ready for the second coat. Okay, so now we're drawing this big tall guy right here. Whenever you're drawing or painting a straight line, don't watch the paintbrush. Put your eyes where you want it to go, and your line will be straighter and cleaner. Because otherwise, if you watch it, you just go, no, 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 and you mess up more. But if you look up there, eye on the prize, it's gonna go better. Try it. Okay, so I'm starting down here, but I'm looking up here. And look how smooth that went. And my little edges are just gonna meet up here where I want them to go. Okay, now that I have the outline, I can fill it in. And if you look at it and you see, oh, I want it a little bit fatter up on the top, easy fix. Just take your brush and make it happen. And kind of taper down a little bit. Okay, and again, I'm filling in with kind of a thin layer because I want it to dry. And then once it's dry, I can do that second coat and it'll fill in a lot better. Because right now it's a little bit translucent, a little bit more so than I want. Okay. And then the last one is pretty round, but I still want it to start in. And I'll just kind of lightly put in where I think I want it to go. And then if I need it bigger, I can always add a little bit more. Filling in with a thin layer so that it'll dry quickly. Okay. Let's see if my plan worked. Ha ha ha. Okay. I think he's ready. He's ready for another coat. Okay. So I'm taking my green and let's do another coat. I went up and down for the first coat. So now if I go side to side, it'll fill it in even more solid. Okay. There's that one. And it's okay to go a little bit thicker with that second coat. It's actually helpful if it takes a long time to dry. The second coat, we want it to take its time drying because I want to mix other colors into it. And it blends and mixes a lot easier if it's wet. Wet into wet. Okay, so I'm going to add my second coat to these little darlings up here. Do second coat on our other friends as well. Okay, now we get to have fun with adding some dimension to our little cactus pals. Okay. I'm going to clean out my brush a little, but no worries if there's still some remaining green on it. I'm going to mix up a light green now for my details. So scoop of white, and we're just going to zhuzh a little bit of that green into it. Start with your lighter colors first when you're mixing, because those darker colors want to take over the world and they will just dominate that lighter color. Okay, a little bit of yellow in there. It's going to help it look nice and cactusy as well. Okay, so mint ice cream. That's what I'm looking for. All right. And then what we can do is just get a little bit of variation into our cactus. Ooh-hoo-hoo. Paint is fun. I love to see it blend before my eyes, especially when it doesn't blend perfectly. It's extra, extra, extra awesome. So I just got a little bit, and then that darker green is still wet, so I can just kind of blend into it. Okay, and I'm just going to stay consistent. Since I went on the right side of the rest of them, I'll stay on the right side with the other ones. Jessie, are you finger painting? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. I just finger painted. Okay. Okay, so this middle one, this I'm gonna leave. I love how this looks. We're gonna leave it if he's highlighted. This one, we're gonna go in stripes, but my stripes are going to be curved. Okay. Then I'm gonna curve the opposite way. Again, remember, don't watch your line. You put your eyes where you want it to go, and it'll be smoother. So what I did just now is, with no paint on my brush, I'm just kind of moving it around to where I want it to go. A little bit of blendy action, but not too much. I don't want it overly blended. I like the paint to look like paint personally. If you want yours perfectly blended, go for it. That's what you should do. Okay. A little bit of yellow in these is kind of nice. So with yellow, like that. Ooh, some yellow here would be cool. Pew, pew, yellow. Okay, and then my last little friend needs his lines too. So I'm kind of just following the curve of the side. That kind of tells me how curvy to make it. He wants yellow as well. Okay. Yay. All right. So we've got our cactuses painted, and now we're ready to just decorate them a little, and we're going to be done. So now I want my smaller brush again. And there's a few different ways that you can do the needles on the cactus. You could do like little V's. It's going to look kind of like, you know, like little cactus needles. Another really easy way is to use dots. And you can make dots either with the point of a small paintbrush, or with a Q-tip, works pretty well, or even just the end of your paintbrush dipped in paint makes a pretty good dot. And that's what I'm going to do. All right, so starting with my first friend, I'm taking the end of my paintbrush, the handle, and I'm going to twirl the paint around, kind of go like that. And I want a pretty good amount, but not like a giant glob, right? And I'm just going to use it kind of like a stamp. And then kind of straight in and out. Boop, boop. Boop, boop. Just stamp those dots wherever you feel like they should be. So they'll be almost kind of polka dot-like on this first little cactus. Then on this one, you'll go in rows. And that will help him not look like a cucumber. He's a little bit cucumber-esque at the moment, but suddenly there's dots and oh, it's a cactus. They're starting to get misshapen, and here's how we fix that. I'm just gonna twirl the end. It was getting a little bit too gunky. There we go. Much better, much more circular. Sometimes when the circles are being reluctant to be a circle, you'll see that I'm twisting the handle of the brush a little bit to get it to be circular. There we go. Okay, last little dot. Okay, it's flower time. Last little bit. I am going to paint pink flowers, but you know what would also look really nice? If you're not a pink person, yellow flowers would also be lovely on this. So to make pink, I just need a tiny little squirt of red paint. And again, when I'm mixing, I want to start with my lighter color first. That red's going to want to take over. I'm going to add the red to the white until I like how it looks. Probably a little bit of water mixed in too, just to kind of thin it out and let it behave itself a little bit better. And here we go. So on this one, I want a flower here. And here. And I'm not really putting a lot of details into these petals. I'm just kind of leaving the impression. But if you wanted to spend a ton of time on them, you definitely could. And then this one right here wants a flower also. On this kind of cactus, the petals were more round, and then on this one, they were more kind of pointy and wispy. And to get them pointy and wispy, kind of just vary the pressure on your brush. So in the middle here, I'm pushing it down, and then when I get to the end, I ease up the pressure and almost like a flick. Whoosh. Strong pressure at first and then barely touching at the bottom. Okay, if your middleman just feels so lonely, I think it looks fine without it because he's tall, so you don't want too much visual weight at the top. But if you must, if he's too lonely, I suppose we could give him a little flower too. Why not? Don't forget to sign it at the bottom. Don't forget to hang it somewhere nice. And if this was your first painting, then you just made the best painting you've ever made before, didn't you? Good